how did the whole thing happen with like, it's cosmetics getting bought out by L'Oreal and now it's like mega, like tell our listeners, like, I mean, obviously that didn't happen overnight and there was a season of planting, seeds and where you really weren't reaping a harvest. And now obviously you're in the whole harvest stage, but what did that look like?
Yeah. So, it really, so after 3 years of all these no's, we got down to under $1,000 in our bank account, which was our personal and our company combined. And it was actually, I rarely ever share this story. I share it in the book, but I love that you talk about faith and I love sharing the real story behind the story with you. Yeah. So I hope it's okay to share this.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
So after 3 years of no's, I was at this big beauty expo in New York City, and there was, it happens once a year, and there's 6,000 women that walk the floor. All of them are in the beauty industry, and they're all of the big brands that are in department stores that their big product launches of the year, they demonstrate them all. So there's, 1,000 being demonstrated and you enter, and it's this big award show, and you enter and you sit there in this 3-foot booth. So I entered our Bye Bye Under Eye Concealer, even though no one had heard of us. And I'm standing there in my 3-foot booth. And the hope is that when all these women are walking by, the hope is that they actually test your product and then vote for it, because they do these big awards. And and if you win one, the hope is you get picked up in retail stores, or all they get more press for your product, all the things. So I'm standing there in between MAC and Lancome, and, all the L'Oreal, all the most beautiful brands out there that I love. And I'm there with IT Cosmetics. And so it was the crazy experience. And women are coming by and coming. Now, keep in mind, I've had 3 years of rejections and haven't been able to get like a big break. And I noticed, you're not allowed to leave your 3-foot table. As I'm standing there, I noticed, oh my gosh, QVC has this huge booth in the background. I've only had phone call rejections from them over and over, but what if I go up in person and I meet the buyer? And so I'm standing there. I'm embarrassed to admit this. I wish I could say I was present and paying attention to everyone stopping by. I mean, I was super gracious, and they'd stop by and I'd show them my product and I'd be talking and engaging, but my head was in another place. All I could think about was, how can I get to that QVC booth? So I'm not even paying attention to who's walking by. Okay. I kept like sneaking off and then I would come back because I'd see the buyers were busy over at the booth. I eventually made my way over to QVC booth, introduced myself, like prayed for the right words to say, poured my heart out, felt sweat dripping down my back, all the things. And the buyer was really nice. She gave me her card, said, let's meet sometime. I walked back over to my table, and I didn't know if she meant it, right? Sometimes like people say like, oh, let's, have a meeting, and you just don't know.
Foo you off a little.
Yeah. And so I'm like, okay. So I'm processing what happened, and I keep demonstrating to all the women walking by. About an hour later, a woman comes up to me and she introduces herself. She says, hello, my name is Miss Lisa Mason. I'm a QVC show host. And she goes, I had tried your product earlier with you. And I just realized, oh my gosh, I didn't even realize I was talking to her earlier, because my head was somewhere else. Thank goodness I love everybody. So and she goes, I want to tell you something. She goes, I think that our QVC gals at home, she says, I'm a QVC show host. She says, I think our QVC gals at home would love this concealer. And I want you to know, I just told our buyer that I believe that. And I think we should launch your concealer. And I look at her and literally tears start streaming down my face. And then I think I freaked her out, because she's like, oh, sugar, I have no say over if we can get, she's like, she goes, I just want to let you know, like, I think this product's great. Okay. So fast forward, we get a meeting with QVC and we got a yes. And here's the thing, Jennifer, and for all of your business owners that are part of your community, there's a famous saying, never accept a purchase order you can't afford to lose if it's consignment. Right. Okay. And QVC beauty is consignment. And so for me, what that meant was, okay, Jamie, you got one shot in a 10-minute window live to sell your products on QVC. You're going to get a shot. Well, Jennifer, we were 3 years into the business, and we were only selling 2 to 3 orders a day on our website and barely staying alive. And I learned we had to sell over 6,000 units of our concealer in this 10-minute window, right, to hit their sales goal or not come back. And it was consignment. So it meant we had to figure out how to pay for the inventory, make it, ship it in, do all the legal and regulatory compliance. And then if I went on air and it didn't sell, we would have to take it all back and we'd be bankrupt, we'd be out of business. And so we, applied for SBA loans, and it was 22 banks said no, which they should have, honestly. And the 23rd bank said, yes, we got enough money just to fund that inventory cost.
Oh, Jamie. What a story God's done in your life, man. 22
it's
no's.
Scary. Well, here's the thing is, what I didn't know was in this moment launching on a QVC, it was going to change everything. And in this moment, this lesson I learned that I'm about to share is why I believe L'Oreal bought our business for $1.2 billion. Yes. And here's what I mean by that. When we said yes to QVC and we had this one shot in 10 minutes, we agreed to it, and we hired third-party consultants. And by the way, let me just say this, there's so many experts that have given me advice that has been so phenomenal and such a blessing. And there's been a lot of experts who haven't. And the way I decipher that, again, as you said it best, like, you know your knower, right? You just know, does this feel right? So we hired third-party consultants who help a lot of people sell on TV and in stores. And here's the big thing. So I created this company, not just to have products that work, for all skin types, but I also had this bigger vision, which was to try and shift culture and beauty and to try and use models that are real women every age. And
thank you.
Skin, right? And skin challenge. And because I realized growing up, I loved all those beauty ads and I aspired to look like them. But as a little girl, they always kind of made me feel like I wasn't enough. And so, when I created It Cosmetics, I thought, and this was pre-YouTube, I thought, how can I use real women as models, all the things to try and to shift and call them beautiful and mean it, to try and shift culture around beauty and the beauty industry, like for every little girl out there who's about to see these ads and start doubting herself, and every grown woman who still does. So I knew I wanted to do that. So here's the thing. I'm sitting there meeting with these third-party consultants. They're all telling me the same thing. If you want to have a shot for success and you're one shot, here's the kind of models you have to use. And they were all like, I don't know, I want to say 12, but let me just say 18, 20, early 20s with perfect skin.
I'm like, looking, and
I'm like, okay, but here's the thing. Like, I created this product for, like, what if, and I brought this idea of, what if I take my makeup off and show my bright red rosacea so I can prove live on QVC.
What you ended up doing? Because I don't even know this story.
Yes. I said, well, here's the thing. They told me I was crazy. They said, no. Like, and we would argue. And I said, listen, if I'm, and this is, and I know that your community will understand this from all the stuff you teach them, but it's like, when we know who our customer is and we can put ourselves in her shoes, I'd say to them, if I'm a woman sitting at home and I'm watching some product on TV, how do I know it's going to work for me if I don't see someone that looks like me, right?
Yes.
And I said, so what if I take my makeup off and just prove it live? It's not some Photoshopped ad. Let me prove it live how it works. And what if I put models, our most popular models, Helen in her 70s. We have Alicia with acne-prone skin, Des with under-eye darkness. Like, what if I put real people? And they thought I was crazy. And we would argue about it. And they wanted me to win, these consultants. So, okay. I'm almost done with the story, I promise. So I'm trying to share like the granularity in case anyone can really relate to this or just needs to hear this today, because so many times people will tell us our vision isn't right, or we're not enough, or we're not the right fit. And that's what happened to me over and over. And so fast forward, we have our one big shot on QVC, and I was freaking out. I flew out to Pennsylvania a week before our airing. And I sat in this rental car in the parking lot all alone, praying, crying, singing I Surrender All, because I heard Oprah say she does that. I was just like, God, take this from me. It's too heavy.
Whatever works.
Right. And I was sitting there in the car, watching the front door of the huge QVC campus at the front door, knowing like the next time I walk in there, I'm either going to walk out bankrupt or my whole life is going to change in this whole new direction. And, but also I second guessed myself in that car. And I thought things like, okay, if I do it, maybe I'll do it their way to start. And then after I get success, I'll do it the way that's authentic to my brand and put real women. I had all these thoughts, but I also know you can't fake authenticity. Like you can't, right? Yeah. And the only way the reason so many people connect with you is because you freaking show up fully authentically, right? So people are able to connect. And it's like, I knew that to be true. So I sat but sometimes we know something, but when our values or our knowing is challenged, it's hard when we're feeling all this pressure. And I'll never forget this moment in the car where I would imagine like, who is that customer? Who's that woman sitting there? And I was like, okay, if somebody is flipping the channel and they're going to see me live on TV and I'm blessed with 5 seconds of their time, what do I want to stand for? Even if they buy nothing, right? And I would imagine like this single mom in Nebraska, I don't know why, folding laundry, who like was too busy to remember she mattered and that she's beautiful. And I just remember this moment, this knowing in the car. I was like, I'd rather have her turn on her screen, see women that look like her, see me calling them beautiful and meaning it, and have her not buy anything. I'd rather have her be reminded that she's beautiful and that she matters than sell a crap load of product and stand for nothing. And I knew what I had to do, but I also didn't know what was going to happen. And it was, I walked into the QVC building. And by the way, the reason I'm sharing this story is I think these are the moments that change our lives.
They do.
Right? When we follow our knowing. And I walked into the QVC building for that 10-minute window. And like Jennifer, I remember on the floors, this big countdown clock. And I was about to go live to 100 million homes. So QVC's broadcast live. For anyone that doesn't know, it's a TV channel live to 100 million homes. There's no script, no teleprompter.
100 million.
100 million homes.
And I remember live on Facebook. Yeah.
And oh my gosh, I just remember the moment the host, they paired me. Oh, I have to wrap that story up for you too. Sorry, I'm all over the place.
No, you're fine.
The host, Lisa Mason, who came up to me at that beauty show, who said, I love your product, right? They paired me with her for the launch. And I have to tell you one thing about her in a second. But anyways, it was only the second time I'd ever seen her now. I was about to go live on TV in front of 100 million homes. And so I remember the big 10-minute clock, and I remember being in the big studio, and all of a sudden we were live. And I learned shortly before that you're not guaranteed those 10 minutes. If you're like a minute or two into selling and it's not doing well, your time will get cut live, could go boom down to 2 minutes, right? But you can't try to sell or nothing sells. And so it was just like, okay, God. And I remember I had double Spanx on. And I remember the sweat was dripping, right? The sweat was like,
you are my people, Jamie.
Oh my gosh. But I had to, the second I started thinking about myself, like, is my dress too tight? All that crap. I was like, oh, I'm going to be done. I have to make it about her at home. And I remember the light went on and I was trying to do this demonstration and my hand was shaking so much that the host grabbed it and she was like, thank you, sugar. And she pushed it under the podium and she took over like a pro. And then I remember my bright red face on national television, the moment that happened, my bare face before shot. And we walked over to all the different women of different ages and sizes and skin challenges and skin tones. And there was about a minute left in the presentation. And I remember the host was like, the tan shade's almost sold out. The deep shade is gone. I'm like, and I remember the 10-minute mark hit and this big sold out sign came up across the screen. And I start sobbing on national. I was like, and my husband came running through the double doors and he's like, and I'm like, real women have spoken. And I'm like crying. And
I love it. You're making me cry.
And he's like, we're not going bankrupt. And that one airing, Jennifer, that one airing that was 10 minutes, it turned into 5 that year and then 101 the next year. And then I ended up doing 250 live shows a year on QVC for 8 years. And we built the biggest beauty brand in QVC's history. So it is right now at this moment. And the only reason I share that is just, it was 3 years of hearing no, even by QVC, but by everybody, and you're not the right fit. And it's like, no one can tell you you're not the right fit. And had I listened to those no's over my own gut, and listen, sometimes a no is right and it's a blessing, right?
Yeah.
And like, And two quick final thoughts. Sorry, I'm talking so much. But just on the God thing, I just want to share something. One of the things I talk about in the book is not just self-doubt and body doubt and all the stuff that I've gone through in my life, but also God doubt. And I share a big lesson in the book I learned on how to, I went through a season of God doubt that lasted a number of years. And someone gave me the advice of, if you doubt God, tell him you doubt him and ask him to prove you wrong. I was like, huh. Right. And so I started doing that. And when I started doing that, it took a few years, but like he did. And yeah. And so just to add one more quick thing for anyone going through God doubt right now, like that's a big lesson I learned is ask him to tell him you doubt him, ask him to prove you wrong. Anyways, so after we launched on QVC, that host, Lisa Mason, she had been there 17 years and she retired and like all that. And so fast forward, and I hadn't talked to her in a long time, and fast forward several years, we became the biggest brand at QVC. And I was like, I've got to thank her for loving our concealer. And I called her one day and I said, I just want to thank you. You know, you loving our product that day changed my life.
Yes.
And I'll never forget what she said, Jennifer. She said to me, honey, I'm really proud of you. And I do love your product. I wear it every day, but that's not why I went up to you at that beauty show. I'm like, what do you mean? She goes, I was walking the floor that day with thousands of women and God told me, go up to that young girl and help her.
Wow.
And she goes, all I did was listen. And I'm like,
it made me cry.
I literally, I still can't even believe those words. And anyways, just to share that piece, I never talk about this, by the way, but just to share.
I will love that. And it's so encouraging just because I'm constantly telling the women I coach that you never know who or what is on the other side of your obedience. You know, and God told her to go talk to you and then look what's happened. And God told you, keep going. Now we're going to both cry, just like a bunch of knuckleheads over here. So, and I love, before we came live, you were telling me that you've actually had a chance to partner with Victoria Osteen on something too, right? At their church. I mean, how cool is that? And so look what God has done. This is amazing. Okay. So all these stories.
And I think it's a God moment and a God-sized dream being here with you. So thank you.
Thank you. You're blessing my socks off. So tell me about your book. The name of the book is Believe It, which is, you know, a play off of It Cosmetics. So what can women expect to hear about in the book? I mean, obviously some of the stories you've shared here, but way more in depth.
So Believe It, you know, I poured every single word into this book, as you know, that process. And it's really, Believe It is really for anybody who's dealing with self-doubt, like who knows deep down inside they're made for more, they're created for more, but still doubts themselves anyway. And it's, you know, for me, yes, I talk about like, even at a granular level, everything I did from you know, dealing with all the rejections, building a toolbox on how to handle them and be resilient, and building a company with over 1,000 employees and going through the acquisition process to L'Oreal and selling it for $1 billion. I talk about all that stuff, but really what this book really is my story of a girl going from not believing in herself to learning how to believe in herself and doubting she's enough to knowing she's enough, and really learning how to get still and hear my own voice and trust it, hear that inner knowing and trust it. And, you know, I really wrote it because, you know, I know that it's not just my story. I know it's a story of so many other people out there, like right now, who are on their own journey of learning how to believe in themselves and trust themselves and know they're enough. And so, it's called Believe It. And I'm donating 100% of the proceeds and my author royalties from it to feed America. When you told me that,
I'm like, what? Okay, who are you donating the proceeds of the book? Well, first of all, when does the book come out? It comes out
so February 23rd. February 23rd. So this is such a big celebration time right now. And there's lots of free gifts we're doing just for the big celebration.
Tell the ladies, where would you prefer they go buy it? And let me just tell you that I have the coolest audience ever, Jamie. Like when I tell them, like, ladies, you're going to love this, go buy that. They show up for me and they're going to show up for you. So I love the community that we have. I've also explained to them how important book orders are to authors. You know what I mean? That even if like, you're like, I'm in a season of life where I don't have any time to read the book, pick it up anyway. Maybe you'll get a chance in a couple of years, but so where can they get the book? And then tell them where all the proceeds from the book are going while I blow my nose because you made me cry. Okay.
Oh, I love it. Oh, yeah. So you can pick it up anywhere books are sold. And from indie bookstores to Target and Amazon and Barnes and Noble, all the retailers are on BelieveIt.com. And so the book's called Believe It. Yep. And 100% of the proceeds and 100% of my author royalties are going to Feeding America and Together Rising. And on BelieveIt.com, the only reason I bring that site up, so the book's called Believe It, and BelieveIt.com is where we're giving all the free gifts. So if you grab the book anywhere and you go to BelieveIt.com, just for the big celebration of the launch and the week after the launch.
What do you have going for free gifts? Because that is brilliant, and I should have done that.
Oh, well, I did. So I wrote this it's a 95-page action plan on really like how to implement all the lessons from the book into your real life.
Yeah.
And so that's free for anyone. We're doing it just for the big celebration for the week. Okay. And then I also filmed a course called Becoming Unstoppable, How to Overcome the Things Holding You Back. And that's free also just for the book launch. And then both of those are going away. I'm never selling either of them. They're just something I did to promote just to give for free to promote the big celebration of the book launch of Believe It.
You're awesome. Okay, so they need to go to BelieveIt.com to take advantage of all of those.
Can you take us back, though, to the beginning? When you were young, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, by the way. Thank you for sharing all that. Yeah, this is quite a journey and quite a journey of going from like struggling Denny's waitress to billion-dollar entrepreneur, right? It's been quite a journey. And so, I mean, all growing up, John, I used to watch Oprah on television and I just loved other people's stories. I thought I was going to be a talk show host my whole life. And eventually became a news anchor and thought that was the path I was on. And I just like so many people out there, all of a sudden you feel something on your heart, right? Like either a setback happens or a problem happens to you, whatever it is, or you just have a really great idea, or you just kind of feel this calling on your heart. And I was, working as a television news anchor and started getting a skin condition called rosacea. And there's no cure for it. And I'd be anchoring the live news and I would be hearing from the producer in my earpiece live on television, like, there's something on your face. There's something on your face. Wipe it off. And I knew I couldn't. And it became a real issue in the sense of like, my cheeks would get so red and they'd be sandpaper-like texture, bumps everywhere. And I kind of went through this season of like, oh my gosh, am I going to lose viewers? Am I going to lose my job? And so I started this, for me, it felt like this major setback, right? And then you know how it is sometimes, like our setbacks are so often like our setups, right? For what we're called to do next. And sometimes we just don't know it at the time. And that's exactly what happened. I initially just started trying to spend my whole paycheck, which wasn't very much in television news, on every product I could get my hands on. So like the most expensive ones in the department stores, the most inexpensive in the drugstores, the pro makeup artist stuff. And I ended up realizing, oh my gosh, there's nothing that works for me. And then on top of it all, I had this huge like aha moment when I was just trying to figure out, why is it nothing works for me? I realized, John, something that became this whole why behind the why, this mission for me to start this business. And I realized like, oh, wow, like all the ads I've seen my whole life in magazines or on commercials, like I've never seen anyone that has a skin problem selling a makeup, right? It's like all these overly photoshopped, unrealistic images. And I realized, my whole life growing up, I aspired to look like that. But then I also realized deep down inside, they made me feel like I wasn't enough. And I had this big aha moment kind of all at once where I realized, wow, if I can, quit my job as a news anchor, which is scary. That was my life's dream. But sometimes knowing when to let go of a dream is as important as knowing when to go after a new one, right? And for me, I pray, I get still, and I really try to listen to that knowing, that gut feeling. And it kept telling me, you're supposed to jump, you're supposed to take this risk. I didn't know anything about makeup or beauty. And I just, but it became a deeper mission. It was like, if I can not just create a product somehow, right, that actually works for people like me, it's going to help so many other people that have probably just given up also on makeup. But on top of it, like, let me do something that matters. Let me like create a beauty company that uses real women, all ages, shapes, sizes, skin tones as my models, and call them beautiful and mean it. Let me try to shift culture in the beauty industry around inclusivity for like every little girl out there who's about to start doubting herself, and every grown woman who still does. And that mission is what fueled me. And I would later learn, by the way, after years and years and years of rejection and no's and not paying myself. This is the thing, by the way, sorry, I'm going to get so excited sharing this with you, but like when you read the Wall Street Journal or the articles out there, they're very, they're press. And so they talk about, oh, girl goes from Denny's waitress to $1 billion entrepreneur, or they just tell you the headlines. They don't tell you what really happened, like the story behind the story, which is a big part of why I wrote this book, because there was so much rejection, so much opposition. And so many times in life, for every person listening in your community right now, it's like we face these setbacks and sometimes we feel like we're alone in them, or like it's us, or maybe we're not qualified, or all the experts are saying no, and success isn't happening around us the way we want it to happen. And so this book is really all of those stories too. And how, and like, what did I do in the face of all the opposition to not give up and to keep going and to break through all the self-doubt. So it's really a whole book about a girl who went from not trusting herself to trusting herself, and not believing in herself to believing in herself, doubting she's enough to knowing she's enough. But I also know it's the story of so many people out there right now, especially right now in this year of uncertainty, and all the things that they need to do to really learn to trust and believe and know they're enough, and step into all of who they are and all of who they're called to be. So anyhow, long story short, I'm so excited. It's such a big week, right? The book is coming out, and it's been like 2 years in the making. But long story short is that, on my honeymoon flight to South Africa with my husband, Paulo, we wrote this is not romantic, by the way. This would not make it into your relationship grit book. Not romantic. But on the honeymoon flight, we wrote the business plan to It Cosmetics. We got back and both quit our jobs and literally went all in. I thought, and maybe so many of your listeners in your community watching or listening will connect with this, but I thought like, oh, if you just have a great product, right, that works, or a great idea, or a great service, or a great blog or podcaster, but like, it's just going to sell. Like people, like, it's just going to sell. And so we both got back, quit our jobs, went all in, and used all of our savings, which wasn't very much, to try and figure out how do we create a product that works, hire an advisory board, that kind of thing. I didn't know, John, that like when we did that, it would be 3 years before we could afford to pay ourselves. Two funny things that maybe I just want everyone out there that is in this season of stepping into all of who they're born to be and called to be, like they feel it on their heart, but they're like, wait, maybe I'm wrong because stuff isn't going my way all around me. Like, it did not go our way for 3 years. And when you Google our story, you see, oh, they sold for $1.2 billion cash. Oh, all these things. And yes, that happened, but it happened in big part because we made the decision to keep checking in with our gut and saying, is this where I'm supposed to be? And we made the decision to not quit. And we made the decision to believe that we could. And those 3 things are free to do for anybody. They're hard to do, and it's a journey, right? And so that's why in my new book, I talk about like all the stuff I did wrong, and then also all the stuff I did right. But John, in our living room in those early years, it was 3 years of hearing no from every single retailer, no after no after no after no, even QVC, which I knew, oh my gosh, if we could get on QVC, I could really show real women live and show and prove how the product works. And they said no for years. And my husband, Paulo, we couldn't afford to hire anybody. So my husband, Paulo, bought that HTML for Dummies book, and he designed our whole first website. And I thought, okay, all the stores are saying no, so we're going to launch our own website and it's just going to sell. Like, this is going to be our saving grace. And And when our first website launched, I thought like, it's going to be Christmas. Like I'm a kid on Christmas morning. And I was so excited, and literally no orders. And day 2, no orders. And day 3, no orders. Weeks into no orders, I finally said to him anything a spouse would say. I said, you did it wrong. It's broken. Like you didn't do it right. And then several days later, we got our very first order that came in, and I was like running around screaming. And my husband loves soccer. He's from Brazil. And so whenever Brazil scores a soccer goal, like he screams so loud and runs around the house, and our dogs hide under the bed. And so that was me when we got our very first order. I'm like, we got our first order. And he stops me and he says to me, that was me. I placed the order to prove to you our website's not broken. And I was just like, oh, it was just scrappy like that, trying to just figure it out for a long time.
I love this story so much because we do see the highlights. We do see the success. Yeah. We see the big sale, but there's so much that went into this, so much heartache, so much rejection, so much adversity. This is Positive University, and it's all about overcoming. And your book is titled Believe It. So how did you and Paulo believe it, even when you maybe shouldn't have believed it? How did you keep each other positive on this journey of rejection and a ton of no's?
Yeah, it's one of the hardest things to do. And I think that when I look back, like there was a lot of mistakes I made, a lot of times where I put experts' opinion on a pedestal instead of my own faith and my own inner knowing, right? Which is so tempting to do. And so, one story I think that really captures, because I think so many of us connect through the power of story, right? And captures like some of the things we did that helped us believe, helped us stay positive, helped us keep going. And they came out of some of the toughest moments. So we were a couple years into the business. It was so hard. We were down to under $1,000 in our bank account, which was not just our company bank account, it was our personal bank account. So anyone out there, whoever has been in that spot and you go to an ATM to get cash and you hit no receipt because you don't want to see it. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what you can't, like that's where we were at. And $1 hot dogs from Costco on the counter outside. Anybody who goes and eats it. The good thing is those taste good, but it was like, how do we conserve every penny we have? It was like a season like that. And we finally got a big call from an investor at a private equity firm. And John, I was so excited because this particular private equity company, they've invested in tons of like consumer product companies, like products all of us right now buy at the grocery stores. A lot of them, they've taken this particular PE place has invested in some of them pre-revenue, some of them when they're really small, and built them to these huge household names. So I'm sitting there going, oh my gosh, they see how how good our product is, what we're doing. Like if they invest in us, like A, maybe we're not going to go bankrupt. B, maybe they'll have leverage and help get us in all these stores that are telling us no, and get us on QVC is telling us no. So I was so excited, and we started taking meetings, and they seemed super interested. We got to the final meeting after the diligence phase, which is when you show them your projections and your plans and all that. I'll never forget this moment, and it was a defining moment that helped me understand how do you stay positive in the face of adversity and opposition and hard times and setbacks. We got to the final meeting, okay? And I was like, it's going to happen. Paulo and I flew in for the meeting, and they were so kind. Everyone was great. And then the head guy, and he was standing about 3 feet from me. And he says to me, so, we just want to tell you, we appreciate you. We're rooting for you, all these things, but it's a no. We're going to pass on investing in IT cosmetics. And by this point, I'm so used to hearing no, right? And I'm like, okay, can you tell me why? Like, could you give me any input or feed? Because usually feedback's a gift, right? And he goes, well, do you want me to be honest with you? Like really honest with you? And I'm like, yes, please. And he was literally 3 feet from me. And he says, I just don't think women will buy makeup from someone who looks like you, with your body and your weight. And I remember watching, it was almost like I was watching his mouth move in slow motion. And when these words were coming out, I felt like this lifetime of body doubt and self-doubt, like flood my body all at once. And I remember as I was watching him say these words, I wasn't offended or anything like that. I mean, it wasn't even about him. It was almost like I was staring my own fear straight in the eye. And I remember this moment where two things happened. Like I remember feeling like, okay, I need to keep my faith bigger than my fears right now. But I also had this deep feeling as he was talking where I just felt he's wrong. He's wrong. But I also felt like if I was ever going to prove that, it would come down to me truly learning how to believe it for myself. And the other thing that happened, and I truly believe our setbacks, even when they suck, even when they hurt, even when they don't make sense, even when they're unfair, our setbacks are so often our setups, right? For fuel of what we're supposed to step into. And when he said those words, I thanked him for his time, because what I realized in that moment was like, oh, he has seen the same images his whole life of what beauty is that I have too, right? Him passing on investing in us because of my weight, that is exactly why I need to create this, like build this company, shift culture and beauty, because it doesn't just affect women, it affects everybody. And he's a dad to little, right? And it's like, it affects everyone. And I never took his no personally. It fueled me. And by the way, just a fun side note is 8 years later, when we sold to L'Oreal and their largest U.S. acquisition in history, I got an email from him, and he said, "Congratulations, I was wrong." And I also learned we would have been the biggest investment in his the most successful investment in his company's history. And the last thing I'll share is on this is that when I talk about our setbacks or our setups, had he said yes to us at that time, we were so desperate. We were so small. We had what looked like no opportunities around us. We probably would have sold like the majority of our business to him for almost no money just to survive. Instead, we ended up because everyone rejected us in big part, we ended up staying the largest shareholder all the way through the sale. And our life is and what we're able to do and how we're able to serve and give is so fundamentally different because of so many of those no's, even though at the time they hurt, they're painful. And it's like, I really think those, like so often the most painful times in our life and the rejections and the no's are often like just like serendipitous grace, like wrapped in a package labeled painful, rejection. And so, part of staying positive was really keeping the perspective the whole time of, first of all, learning to really tune in and trust ourselves and our gut, because so many people, even in your community, people I know, myself, this is always a journey and a struggle, is to figure out how to trust ourselves, right? And how to actually, because we're surrounded by so much noise, right? We have all the self-doubt in our own head. We have other people's opinions all around us, everywhere. We hop on social media or the news and everyone's fighting. It's like, there's so much noise that so many people go through life and never learn how to actually break through and turn down the volume on all that stuff, turn down the volume in our own heads of our own self-doubt, and actually get still and listen to what it is our gut is telling us, our knowing, our truth, right? And for a lot of people, that's how they hear God. For a lot of people, that's how they hear their faith. And I think that doing that is so important. And in the book, I talk about so many tips and lessons on how I've done it. But I feel like if people are going to do one thing, just really learning to tune in to and listen to their own gut. A lot of people have never done it. A lot of people haven't done it in a long time. A lot of people feel like they don't know how to do it. And part of not knowing how is just because we're not separating that, oh, wait, everything I'm hearing isn't me. I'm hearing my own self-doubt. I'm hearing other people's opinions. I'm hearing my friends and family who love me, but they only see me through their own lens of experience and limitations, right? We have to learn to turn down the volume on all that, get still, listen to our gut, because at the end of the day, it's the single biggest way we're going to step into all of who we are, all of who we're called to be. And I know you have a lot of athletes on and a lot of people, and competition's a big, and listen, I'm all for like competing, all that stuff. Like, oh, trust me, like I'm driven. Like, it's not an accident we built $1 billion business. But here's what I know to be true for anybody listening, whether their dream is to start painting again or to write a book and just write that first page, whatever it is. And I think this is so important, by the way, because now we're seeing social media everywhere and it's so easy to fall in that comparison trap. When it comes to competition, the biggest thing that I know is true. And I think when we focus on this is another way to stay really, really positive also. And it's true, is that we're not here to compete with anyone else. Like, we're here to compete with like who God made us born to be. Like, we're here to compete with who we know deep down inside we're capable of becoming. And when people really look at it that way, they're like, oh, that's when you know, oh, I'm not in the right job, or, oh, I need to start taking that dance class, or, oh, I need to, all those things we know deep down inside, if we're on that track of stepping into all that we are and all that we're created to be.
It's so good, Jamie. I often say that man's rejection is God's protection. So you're definitely being protected during that time, no doubt. And then also just hearing you talk about your belief, your faith, your intuition. I'm just curious. I'm thinking about you as a Denny's waitress.
Yeah.
What did you believe was possible then? And did you learn to trust your gut then? Like, when did you start learning to trust your intuition, to hear those voices? Because I get impulses too. I get hits of what I'm supposed to do. And I think some people don't get them. So you share a lot of tips in the book, by the way. So we're not gonna be able to share everything on this interview. Read the book. Jamie shares a ton of tips in this book to help you on your journey. If you're a small business, her advice is incredible. If you're growing your business, if you're a big business, if you're a leader, if you're someone who's an entrepreneur, if you're someone who wants to be more creative, all of the chapters in that book give you nuggets of wisdom and advice and tips to help you on your journey. It's like really is for everyone, just so you know. So you're going to get some tips, but Jamie, in terms of that intuition and gut, tell us about that Denny's waitress that you were and what was possible then to you.
Yeah. So I've always felt, and I've always felt deep down inside like I was destined to serve in a big way or do something that impacted other people on all of our own journey. I always had that inkling, didn't know what it was. And working as a Denny's waitress, this is so funny, working as a Denny's waitress, oh my gosh. So the Denny, and I was working to try and save up for school and all that, and pay my way through school. And Denny's, it's so funny how so many things teach us lessons, right? So I won't get into this too much, but like the Denny's I worked at, the kitchen was a mess in the sense that they would take an hour to get pancakes out sometimes. So I'm an introvert by nature. And I was like, oh my gosh, people are getting mad and they're leaving because it's taking an hour to get pancakes. And I'm not getting a tip. And I really need a tip because I'm trying to pay through school. And so I learned to talk to people and try to be like, and try to just connect with them and ask about their stories and that whole thing. And it probably planted a seed in me of understanding the importance of operations of a business and the right operational infrastructure. So even as a, in that whole different industry as a Denny's waitress, I really think every single thing we go through in life helps us build that foundation, right, of where we're going to be. But, in the time I was a Denny's waitress, here's really where my gut started speaking to me. And this is for everybody out there. It's never too late to start learning how to hear your own intuition, right? Most people never do. But just like faith or like anything else, I think it's never too late. I think everyone can start now. And I really think that it's a journey. It's a journey of building on experiences and then looking back and going, oh, I didn't listen to my gut there. I had that instinct and it didn't go so well. Or, oh, I decided to go against everyone else. I trusted my gut and here's what happened, right? And I think for all of us, it's every area of life. I mean, this is something a lot of your community might relate to, is like, or not, but if you've ever dated a sketchy guy, or, or you have a friend where you're just like, I don't think they're telling me the truth. Something's not adding up. We kind of know it, right? Like so many people can hopefully relate to this at some point in their life, but they've dated someone where they're like, I don't really believe him that his phone just broke and that he just like disappeared for a day, right? I don't think and you can choose, we all choose like, oh, I'm just going to ignore it and I'm just going to stay in love. Or, you know what? Like, okay, I'm done. Like we all know. And I feel like we continue building those experiences in life. And then we look back on them and it's like, now I'm able, looking back on so much of this journey, I'm able to really know that some of my biggest mistakes and misjudgments and miscalculations came when I went against that inkling inside, right? And I trusted people that are touted visionaries or experts. And it's good to trust experts and visionaries, except if your deep gut inkling goes against it, because knowing that you stayed to that through line of authenticity for you and what you're called to do is so important. And learning how to tune in and hear that can literally change the whole course of your life. And one big example of that is probably one of the greatest business lessons I've ever learned and life lessons. And it came down to this moment where after 3 years of hearing no's, and by the way, John, at one point, I think it was 2 years into our business, I actually was able to get, and just to share a scrappy tip for anyone out there, like really building their business who can't afford to hire people, I was like emailing everyone on LinkedIn. I would find anyone that worked at the company. I would just try to get in some way, send them products, ask them to, and I'd finally like hustled my way into a guy named Alan Burke, who is the head of Olive Beauty at QVC. He had built this multi-billion dollar beauty industry there, department there. And I got through to his assistant and I begged her to like have him look at our product and get us meetings and all those things in front of the buyers. And anyways, long story short, I got a call saying he is going to take a call with me and he's reviewed the products. And I thought, oh my gosh, this head of everything, Alan Burke, if he's going to spend his precious time like calling me, it's going to be good. Right. And I was so excited. And I was pacing around waiting for the call in our office, which was our living room. And Paula was there and I was like, I was freaking out. He called. And right when I answered the phone, obviously I was like, I didn't know what we were going to do, right? We were down to no money. I was freaking out. And I said, okay, to my head, I'm like, they're lucky to have us. He's lucky to get us, like all these things, right? Pumping myself up. And I got on the phone and he said, hello, Jamie, this is Alan Burke from QVC. And I'm like, Alan, it's so great to talk to you and this whole thing. And anyways, he got right to the point and he said, we've reviewed your products with all the buyers here in the beauty department. And it's unanimous that it's a no. We're going to pass on your company. You're not the right fit for QVC and you're not the right fit for our customers, but we wish you well. And I was like, oh, but I am the right fit. And I just tried to pour into another pitch. And he thanked me for loving QVC, but said it's a no, got off the phone. Okay. So then I cried myself to sleep 3 nights in a row. If you've ever had bad news and you like wake up in the morning and you hope it was a dream and you're like, oh, it wasn't, right? It was like that day after day after day. So fast forward another year, we're at a big beauty show and one of the QVC hosts tried our product. There were 6,000 women there. She tried our product and said, you need to be on QVC. She told the buyer, we got one shot. We got our first big yes, but what it meant, and this is one of the greatest life lessons and business lessons I've ever learned as it pertains to trusting your gut and staying authentic to who you are. We got one shot on QVC. And here's what it meant. We got a 10-minute window to go live in front of 100 million homes and sell our product. But what it also meant was, and at the time we were selling only 2 to 3 orders a day on our website, right? Fulfilling them out of our living room, driving to the post office. So we're only selling 2 to 3 orders a day, barely staying alive. They ordered over 6,000 units of our concealer to sell in just a 10-minute window in order to hit their sales goal or not come back. And it was a consignment deal, which meant we weren't paid for any of it. And whatever sold, we got paid for, but whatever didn't sell would get shipped back to us. So it's like never, as an entrepreneur, never accept a purchase order you can't afford to lose. But at this point, we were like out of options. And it just felt like, you know what, let's just go all in. So we said yes. We applied for SBA loans. And I think the first 22 banks said no. Bank number 23 gave us an SBA loan to cover just the manufacturing costs of those 6,000 units. And so literally everything was on the line. I flew out to QVC a week early. And you know how a lot of times athletes will envision themselves on the podium or landing the triple axel or scoring the touchdown. Like you visualize stuff. I flew out there a week early and I sat in this rental car in the parking lot of QVC, which is in Pennsylvania. And I just started envisioning everything. Like I was trying to pretend I was an athlete. And I was like visualizing everything I could, like the sold out sign coming up across the screen. And here's the moment that became hard. We hired third-party consultants that are amazing at helping people succeed selling on television. And they all told me the same thing. They said, if you're going to have any shot at success, you need to use this type of model, which was the same type of model I'd seen in magazines my whole life. You need to do your sell this way. And I would argue with them. I'd say, okay, but that's not why I created the product. And also, like, what if I just take my makeup off and show my bright red rosacea on national TV so I can prove live the product works? And like, I would say like, oh my gosh, if I'm sitting at home and I am 70 years old, or I have hyperpigmentation or this skin challenge or this skin tone or this skin problem, if I don't see someone that looks like me, how do I know it's going to work for me? And like, we would argue, and they wanted us to win. They wanted the best for us. They're like, listen, this is the best advice we can give you. Here's what you need to do. And like, one thing I'll say is, had I realized that if you're ever going to do anything novel or new, or even it's an idea that's been done a million times, but it's your take on it, of course, experts aren't going to think it's going to work, because subconsciously they only think things are going to work that they've already seen proven work, right? And I didn't know that for a long time, and they mean so well, but they're seeing it. But even though a lot of them are visionaries, they're only able to see what you're doing through their own lens of experience. And so anyways, long story short, I didn't have a chance to do it both ways. It was like everything was on the line. And it's really easy to say, oh, I'm going to stick with authenticity in my mission. But then when you're in a moment where everything's on the line and you know you might lose your entire company, it's really hard to just tune in and trust your gut, right? Put your own gut instinct on a pedestal instead of the expert's advice. And I sat in that car for a week and I stared at the front door of the QVC building. And I knew the next time I walked through those doors, I would either walk out bankrupt or with like my whole life changed. And the more I prayed about it, I would sit there in that car, literally crying, trying to like, God, take this from me, because it feels so heavy, and just tell me what to do. And it came down to a couple of things. I imagined who my customer was, and I would just kind of imagine who she is watching at home. And for some reason, I kept imagining like a single mom in Nebraska folding laundry who was like too busy to remember she mattered and remember she's beautiful and that she's enough. And I just remember this moment where I was like, you know what? I would rather, if she's going to bless me with 5 seconds of her precious time, I would rather have her look up on her TV screen and see me showing real women who look like her, calling them beautiful and meaning it. Even if she buys nothing, I'd rather that happen than like me sell a ton of product and stand for nothing. And so it was like, I knew what I had to do, but it doesn't mean it's easy, right? And when the 10-minute clock started, we went live on the air. And by the way, John, when you probably know this, I didn't know this until I got there. When the 10-minute clock starts, you don't just get 10 minutes for sure. If you're a minute or two in and you're not selling enough, your clock cuts and it jumps down to 2 minutes. And you just like lost 6 minutes. And it's the most stressful thing and most high pressure thing, right? Because they don't mess around. Like you hit sales goals or that's it, which is any business. But so the 10-minute clock goes up. It's like 9:59, 9:58.
Jamie, I got to stop you there for a second. I want people to realize this, like your future depends on this moment. Like I'm thinking about this. I mean, you and Paulo, everything you've worked towards, you are now going on national television in front of 10 million homes. The light comes on. It's you, a camera, and the viewer. Yes. I can't imagine how nervous, how fearful, and what that moment must have felt like. You talked about sports, being an athlete, the bright lights are on. It's a big game. And your future career depends on how you play in this moment. And there you were in that moment. How did you feel first off? Like, what did you feel like? Was an outer body experience? And then tell us what happened.
Yeah, I felt, so I'm never nervous for TV, right? Because that's what I did my career. But in this moment, exactly what you said, I was literally shaking like a leaf, like when Scooby-Doo would see a ghost in cartoons. Like I was like shaking so much. I had this whole demonstration planned on my wrist that shows how our concealer doesn't crease. And I tried to do it. And my hand was shaking so much. The host grabbed my hand, shoved it under the podium on live TV. And I literally, I remember in that moment, the way I was able to get through it was I had to make it about something bigger than myself, because every second, every moment I would start to go back into my own head, I'd be like, oh, my dress feels a little tight right now. Oh, what are people thinking about my bright red rosacea on national? I was like, oh, no. Like, or, oh, is my business going to go out? Right. Because if you try to sell, nothing sells on top of it all. I had to go back to like, why am I doing this? This isn't about me. This is about every woman and person out there that needs to see a new definition of beauty. Like it's not about me. Right. And so it was like that why. And I would imagine for every athlete too, it's like, from their own story to their family to the reason that they want to win, right? It has to be so much bigger than themselves. The fight to make you fight hard enough to not quit when times are hard and to not get in your own head when times are scary, right? And this time was scary, and I was shaking like a leaf, and I barely remember the first minute or two, and then I remember my bright red rosacea on national, because QVC's live to 100 million homes. So. And there's no script, no nothing. It's all live, right? And so you're just live, exactly what you said, staring at a camera, knowing 100 million homes is broadcast live. And all of a sudden I see on national television, my bright red, bare face, rosacea. And then I just remember and then I went over to the models, right? And it was all real women, every age, shape, size, skin challenge, skin problem, story. And it was like, for me, the most important, meaningful experience, because I was there live on TV, not just calling them beautiful models, but like meaning it. You know what I'm saying? And you cannot fake authenticity and just meaning it. And I'll never forget, we were about a minute left in the cell. And I was like, yes, they haven't cut my time, right? But I had no idea what was going on. And we were about a minute left. And the host is like, the deep shade is almost gone. The tan shade, we're down to 200. I was like, and then all of a sudden, literally with like seconds left, the sold out sign came up across the screen. And I've never done this before. On national TV, tears start streaming down my face. They cut. The producers thought I was going to faint. I found out later, and they came rushing in, but they go on to the next product, which is on another stage, which is probably Dyson vacuum or something. They cut. And I remember Paulo, my husband Paulo, rushing through the double doors of the studio. And I look over at him sobbing, and I'm like, real women have spoken. And I'm like sobbing. And he's like, we're not going bankrupt. Like that's all he cared about. And I was like, ah! I was like sobbing. And John, that one airing led to 5 that year, 101 the next year, 150 the year after. And then we did 250 live shows a year on QVC for 8 years in a row. Still do. The company still does. Right now, we built the largest beauty brand in QVC's history. And it is right now at this moment. And the only reason I share that isn't to be like, oh, isn't this cool? No, 3 years, they told us no. 3 years, they told us you're not the right fit. Alan Burke says you're not the right fit for us or our customers. And then we built the largest brand in their history, right? And the coolest part about this, and this is why I trust God's timing in everything, is the coolest part about this is Alan Burke, the guy who rejected me, right? He is, after we launched on QVC, he became one of my dearest friends, my and Paula's dearest friends, greatest mentors, biggest champions, all those things, right? And is right now to this day, one of my dearest friends. And then he retired from QVC. And then we hired him in a paid position on our advisory board. And I remember this moment where I realized, oh my gosh, the guy who rejected me is now working for me. I was like, wow, it was like this full circle moment that was huge. And the other thing about it, right? So, and by the way, no one can tell you you're not the right fit. Only God can tell you that. No one can tell you you're not the right fit. No one can tell you that, you know, your cheeks are too red, or your body's too big, or you don't come from the right family, or you don't come from the right place, or no one can tell you you're the right fit. And that's why it's so important to turn down the volume on that kind of stuff and to learn how. It's really why I wrote this book, because I feel like so many people, and I've learned this because I get so many DMs on my Instagram all the time with people saying like, I'm about to give up because of this, or I feel stuck because of this. And what I realized is, it's because we turn the volume up and we on all those things, on the people who tell us we're not enough, on the business success we see around us at that moment that tells us, we must not be onto something. Maybe our gut's wrong, right? It's like, that's the stuff we listen to. And then we never learn to truly tune in. And the last thing I'll say about the setups thing again, is that Alan Burke, even though like he crushed my heart and I sobbed myself to sleep for days in a row when he said, you're not the right fit, all that, I learned later that sometimes in life, we don't know what we don't know. And you're saying that, that rejection is God's protection. In this case, I learned Alan Burke was right when he said no. Like, I just didn't know what I didn't know. Paulo and I, we weren't yet operationally sophisticated enough to handle an account the size of QVC. We would have failed. So had he said yes sooner, we would have failed. And it was like, oh, wow, he was right all along. Again, another example, serendipitous grace. It's just painful rejection at the time. So he was right all along.
Such a great example that here you thought, he was saying you weren't the right fit, but you really weren't ready. And if you would have done it at that point, you would have succeeded like you did. So the delay was also a blessing. So there's rejection, that's God's protection. There's also delays that we think we're ready now and we're not. I remember when I was speaking when I was younger and I wasn't getting on the big stages. I'm like, why aren't I getting on the big stage? And I was all upset and I wasn't ready for the big stage. If I would have gotten on the big stage, I would have failed miserably. So such a great lesson. But Jamie, how do you get over the frustration? Because a lot of people listening are starting something or they're not getting the promotion. It's not happening fast enough. They want to create something, but again, they're going through the struggle and the muck and they're not receiving what they want at that time. You knew you had something that was better than the competition. You knew you had a great product, and yet other people weren't recognizing that greatness in the product. And they also weren't recognizing your greatness early on.
What you described when you were going to QVC and you drive down the road and you see the big queue and you kind of get that feeling of, oh my goodness, I'm going to go on this show and it's this big platform and 100 million homes. And you get so nervous. I related to you so much with that because I was on QVC and the pressure was on to sell a certain amount of units and, getting invited back. But that first day that you were on QVC live on air, you shared a moment that I think a lot of people would not want to share or want to hide. And it was the moment in which the host had to grab your hand to stop you from shaking, to give you a moment to collect yourself. I mean, people need to read this because it's riveting, but from your own personal experience and from your voice, I think I just kind of want to hear how you manage specifically to breathe in that good air and calm down so that you can deliver the message and be steadfast to get where you needed to go.
Yeah, everything was on the line in that moment, right? And for me, it was like one of my biggest life lessons, I would say, not just business lessons, but life lessons, where I was in this spot where all the experts were telling me what to do, right? To have the best chance of success in that moment when I'm standing there shaking like a leaf on TV. all the experts told me one thing, but like my gut told me a totally different thing. And sometimes in life, it's so hard when it's like, and by the way, for a lot of us, it's like other people's opinions or like our family or friends or whatever, they're doubting our dream or they're giving all their input, and it becomes so noisy that we almost can't even hear what our own gut's telling us. And what happened in that moment was after 3 years, so you guys imagine pouring all your savings in and you launch your dream and you think it's just going to work. And then for 3 years, QVC said no. Their head guy, Alan Burke, got on the phone with me. One time I finally got him on the phone and he said to me, "You're not the right fit for QVC or our customers." This was 3 years of Sephora saying no, Ulta, everybody, department stores. We finally got one shot, right? In this moment, Sean, that you're talking about, we had one shot. It was a 10-minute window. And literally we had to hit their sales goal or not come back. And the only reason that was really scary is because we were only doing about 2 to 3 orders a day on our website at the time. And so we were barely, we were like eating the $1 hot dogs at Costco. That was like dining out, which was a gift because they taste good. Like all those things, right? Like that's where we were. And we finally, it's a crazy story, which I share in the book, how we got this one shot on QVC finally, but we had one shot and it was a 10-minute window to either hit their sales numbers or not come back. And the challenge here was that we had to sell over 6,000 units of our product, our Bye Bye Under Eye Concealer, in this 10-minute window. And we were only selling 2 to 3 orders a day on our website. And it was consignment. And what that meant was we had to figure out how to get the money, which we didn't have, to pay for, manufacture, ship in all that product, 6,000 units. And consignment at the time for QVC is that if it doesn't sell, they ship it all back to you and you don't get paid. You don't get paid. And so we had applied for 22 SBA loans and got rejected. And it was the 23rd that gave us enough money. This bank gave us enough money just to cover that one order, right? And for QVC. And so we had met with these third-party experts, and they're awesome. They help a lot of people sell really well on TV. And they all told me the same thing, which is like, okay, if you want your best chance of success, here's what you need to do in your segment. Here's the kind of model you need to use. And what they told me was the same models I've been seeing my whole life on TV ads that don't look like me, that don't have skin problems, that don't, right? And I'm like, and all the same age. And I'm just like, and I would argue with them and say, okay, but like, that's not my authentic why for why I created this. And like, what if I just like take my makeup off on national TV and show my bright red rosacea and like prove the product works and show, you know, models of all different ages and sizes and skin tones and skin challenges. Like, cause then if I'm sitting at home, let's say I'm sitting at home and I'm 70 years old and I'm like, you know, don't like my hyperpigmentation, whatever it is. If I don't see someone who looks like me, like, how am I going to know it works for me? Right. And we would get into it. And like, here's the thing I wish I knew, because this would have saved me a million nights crying myself to sleep, is so many times experts, like they want the best for you. They believe, they also tout themselves as visionaries a lot of times, but like subconsciously they're only, if you're doing something totally different, right? Like something new, something novel, your own take on it. Like so many experts are only capable, and they would never admit it, but they're only capable of thinking something's going to be successful if they've already seen it succeed before, right? So like, it's so hard when people don't believe in our dream or don't think it's going to work. And especially in this case, I put these experts on pedestals thinking like, oh my gosh, they've helped so many people. So meanwhile,
really fast.
Yeah.
Note of that. And I just I would love if you allow me to read this quote. I thought it was amazing. Where is it? You say in the book, to venture into unmapped territories, sometimes we have to take the experts off the pedestal we've created in our minds for them and put our intuition onto one. That is like, I just was like, yes. Anyway, I just wanted to I wanted people to hear that because it was just such a powerful moment as I was reading. If I look down, it's because I have notes and you're saying something. Oh, and I want to give this quick little plug if I can. So for years and years, I was like, I wore makeup in my very first workout videos, and I was like, I'm never wearing makeup again, specifically for the reason that it would be like cracked and I would look back. It's not that I didn't want it to, beautify my face. And as a male, like, I don't have a problem wearing makeup. Yeah. But when you talked about how you were bending, you put the makeup on and you were bending your wrists and comparing it to other makeup and how it didn't crack. When I was reading this book, I said, let me go get some It Cosmetics real quick. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Anyways, sorry, I cut you off, but I just needed people to hear that.
Oh, thank you. Well, yeah, I mean, so I love that you shared that quote too. And I love that touched you, because it was one of my biggest lessons of learning, and in that moment, by the way, it was all on the line, right? So the experts are telling me what to do. I don't have the luxury of trying it both ways. And I flew out to QVC a week early, sat in that parking lot, and I literally just sat in this rental car and I stared at the front door, and I watched people go in and out all day long. And I sat there and I cried and I prayed. It felt like it was so heavy, because I knew the next time I walked through those doors, like, I was either going to walk out with my whole life changed, or I was going to walk out bankrupt and out of business, also with my whole life changed. And I just sat in that car and I was like literally praying and crying. So I was like, it's so tempting when it's easy to go, oh, this is what I stand for. But like, when your whole business is on the line and you don't know if you're going to, it's really tempting to go, oh, well, maybe they're experts for a reason. And listen, experts are amazing to listen to in so many cases. And the way I decide who to listen to is I check in with my gut. And it's like, oh, does this feel right? Do I feel peace about it? Do I feel like, yes, this is right? And in this case, I didn't. I sat there in that car and I knew they were giving me the best advice they could. They wanted me to win, right? But my gut kept telling me they're wrong. And when we have those moments in life, it's really freaking scary and it's hard. And I just sat in there and I just imagined the women and men watching QVC. That I imagined the moment, if I was going to get 10 minutes and people were going to spend their precious time turning their TV station on and watching me, like what did I want to stand for, right? And it came down to this moment in the car. For some reason, I imagined like this single mom in Nebraska folding laundry who was like too busy to remember that she mattered and that she's beautiful and all those things. And I was like, you know what? I'd rather have her turn her TV on, not even buy anything, and see me showing models that look like her. And I'd rather do that than like sell a ton of product and stand for nothing. And so it was like, I knew what I had to do, but sometimes we know and it's not easy. And I remember, Sean, the moment you're talking about. So that I'm standing there in a live studio, right? And the 10-minute clock is going and it's about to start counting down. And it's like, boom, 9:59, 9:58. I'm freaking shaking. And I'm not even nervous for TV, but it was the fact that my whole company was on the line. It was coming down to this moment. And the other thing that's crazy, I didn't know this until I got on QVC the first time. The other thing that's crazy is if you're not hitting the sales goals like a minute or two in, right? They cut your time live. So it's not like you're guaranteed 10 minutes. Right? And it's like, if you're like 2 minutes in and you think you have 8 minutes left and you're not doing well, boom, your clock's at 2 minutes. You just lost so much money and you can't like try to sell because then nothing sells. And so anyhow, I'm there live and it's like 9:58, 9:58, 9:50. And I tried doing this demonstration that Sean's talking about, which is where and I'd practiced this like a million times in my bathroom mirror, right? And I had the two leading department store concealers that are so famous. I had them on my wrist along with ours. And I bend my wrist back and forth to show like, oh, they start cracking, creasing and ours doesn't. So I planned this so many times. So there I am on live television in front of 100 million homes. Did not anticipate that my whole body would be shaking like a leaf, like Scooby-Doo in the cartoon when he sees a ghost, like shaking to the point where the host finally grabbed my hand and she's like, "Thank you, sugar." And she pushed it under the thing. And I remember my bright red, bare face before a shot came up on national TV. And I remember walking over to all the real women I put as models, and there was like a minute left in the cell. And or maybe less than that. And I remember the host saying like, the deep shade is almost gone. The tan shade, we're down to a few hundred. And I was like, oh. And then I remember at the last second, the sold out sign went up across the screen, and I literally start sobbing, right? My husband comes running through the double doors, and I'm like, real people have spoken. And he's like, we're not going bankrupt. And then it was like crazy. And Sean, that one, by the way, this was years of no, right? You're not the right fit for us. And then that one airing turned into 5 that year, 101 the next year. And we eventually did 250 live shows a year on QVC and built the biggest beauty brand in QVC's history. And right now at this moment, it still is. And I only share that because it's like anyone listening right now is going through this season where they're like, oh, my idea, it feels right in my gut, but it's like, it's not getting traction, or my sales suck online, or all the retailers are saying no, or I'm not getting clients, or we go through those hard seasons. And so many people never make it simply because they just give up and they quit when it gets hard. And for me, when you really learn, and it's such a big part of why I wrote Believe It, my new book, because I feel like just spending that time, and it's a practice and it's a journey of learning to hear your own gut, right? And when you check in and it tells you you're on the right path, for me, that's what I listen to. I didn't listen to my bank account. I didn't listen to the fact we were only doing 2 orders a day for a long time, or all the retailers saying, no, you're not the right fit. I kept listening to that. And to me, that was one of the biggest things that, allowed us to build. And now it is the largest luxury makeup company in the country right now as of 2020, which is crazy, Sean, because when I was Denny's waitress, I'd save my tip money to try and buy a MAC lipstick and a Lancome eyeliner. Like, it was a big deal for me, right? And to think that this little company we started in our living room is now bigger than all of them, like, it's crazy.
You use visualization quite a bit. Is that intentional? Because I know that when you had your first big thing on QVC, you went a week early, sat in the parking lot every day, and imagined it going well. And I was like, whoa, she preps like an athlete.
I did. After 3 years of rejection and hearing no, and that we're not literally the words, you're not the right fit for QVC or for our customers. When you hear that, it's really hard to not believe it. So I'd heard that for 3 years, and we finally got one shot. We finally got a yes. We had this 10-minute window and to sell our product. And anyone who's a business owner out there will kind of understand this, that we were only selling 2 to 3 orders a day on our website and barely surviving. And to take this one shot on air, we had to sell over 6,000 units of our product to hit their sales goal. Yeah. And so we had to figure out how to literally get an SBA loan, borrow money to manufacture it, to ship it to them, to get this one shot. And it was consignment. So if it didn't sell, we'd have to take it all back and we'd go bankrupt, right? So you should never say yes to this unless you're totally desperate and you're going to maybe go out of business anyway, which was the case that we were in. So, we said yes. We'd finally got a shot, and I felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. I flew out and I sat all alone in this rental car out front of their building for a week, literally imagining. And I was like, and by the way, Tom, at the time, I was not trained on how to do this. I was like, I think Olympic athletes, they imagine themselves like landing the triple axel or like, standing on the podium. I'm like, that's what I'm going to do. And I sat in that car and I imagined the sold out sign coming up across the screen. I imagined, my message connecting with real women watching at home. I imagined all those things. But the other big thing is probably like that moment in time for me was one of the biggest life and business lessons I've ever learned, like literally learned and unfold right in front of my eyes, which was, we had one shot, and we hired third-party consultants that help a lot of people sell on television, and they help a lot of people with their businesses. And, I shared with them, okay, we have this 10-minute segment. I think I want to take my makeup off and just show my bright red rosacea and like prove live how this works, and put all models that are different ages and sizes and skin tones and skin problems. And they were like mortified. They're like, okay, here's the thing, because they wanted us to win, right? Like that's their job. They wanted us to succeed. And what they all advised was, if you want your best shot at success, here's what you need to do. Use this type of model with perfect skin, the kind I'd seen my whole life on TV, on television ads. And I'm like, but that's not why I created this company. Like that would be inauthentic to why I'm doing this. And, but they're like, and we would fight about it. And I was like, plus, let's just take a big step back. This doesn't make sense to me. If I am sitting at home watching, and maybe I have hyperpigmentation, or I'm 75 years old and I'm like, oh, is this product for me? And I only see one type of model who with perfect skin, how do I know it's going to work for me? Like, this doesn't make sense to me. And we would fight about it, and they wanted the best thing. And that's the other thing I've learned is sometimes experts, I wish I knew this lesson earlier. I would have saved myself so many nights crying myself to sleep. But sometimes experts that are touted visionaries, they would never be able to admit this ever, but they still subconsciously can't imagine something succeeding if they haven't already seen it succeed before. So it's like anybody doing anything novel or different, and by definition, if you're doing something authentic, even if it's already been done before, no one's going to do it like you. So you're doing it novel and new. It's hard for anyone to imagine it succeeding. So oftentimes when people don't believe in you, or don't believe in your dream, or don't believe in your idea or your product or your vision, it's not personal, and it's not even often valuable, because they just actually can't imagine it because it hasn't been done before. So anyhow, they're all telling me to do it a certain way, to take my one shot in that 10-minute window and do it a certain way, and use perfect models with perfect skin and all this. So I sat there in that car, literally praying and crying, because I also didn't want to go out of business. You know what I mean? And I was like, okay, well, I just keep having this gut feel. It was like my gut was on, one hand, and these experts' advice were on another. And we were so tempted to put experts on a pedestal too, but my gut kept telling me not to do it because it's inauthentic. So then I'd have thoughts like, okay, well, maybe I'll try it their way and I'll build success and I won't go bankrupt, and then I'll try it my way. I had all these thoughts. And that's why one of the things I talk about in the book is the idea that authenticity alone doesn't guarantee success, but inauthenticity guarantees failure. And I knew that. And I just sat there in that car and I imagined who was going to be watching. And I imagined that person sitting at home. And I made this decision that I would rather have her, whoever she was, I'd rather have her look up on her screen and see me taking my makeup off and showing all different types of women and calling them beautiful and meaning it. I'd rather have her look up on her screen and feel like she's seen and like she matters and like she's enough, even if she buys nothing. If she's going to give me a few seconds of her precious time, I'd rather do that than sell a shit ton of product and stand for nothing. And it was that moment where I knew what I had to do. But sometimes we know what we have to do, and it's really freaking scary. And I remember that I got my one shot, and I was in the QVC studios, and I see the countdown clock, and I know we're about to go live with 10 minutes to 100 million homes. And what I learned also, Tom, was, you're not guaranteed that 10 minutes. If you go live and you're not hitting the goals, a minute or 2 minutes in, you can get your time cut live. And then you're oh gosh, I'm totally screwed. And you can't, I've also learned this now, you can't try to sell, because then nothing sells, right? You can't fake authenticity. So it was so much pressure, but it was I knew what I had to do. And to how you started this interview is exactly why we succeeded. It was I remember the clock went live, and it was, and I remember it was 9:59, 9:58, 9, and I was freaking out, and my hand was shaking like crazy, right? And it was maybe a minute left when the host was all of a sudden, and I didn't know how it was going, but I knew our time didn't get cut yet. And there was about a minute left, and the host started doing what they call a shade countdown, meaning, okay, we're almost sold out of the deep shade. There's 200 left in the day. And I'm like, and then I remember at the 10-minute mark, literally the sold out sign I envisioned so many times comes up across the screen. And I just start crying on national television. And my husband,
you put a great picture in the book. It's fantastic.
You saw the picture, right? Yeah. Okay. So literally in that moment, you saw the sold out sign came up, and then my husband came rushing in the double doors. He's like, "We're not going bankrupt." Like that's all he was like so happy about. Meanwhile, I'm like, this worked. Like real women have spoken, and there's this big thing. And that one show turned into 5. We got Welcome Back, turned into 5 that year, and then we ended up doing over 250 live shows a year for 8 years, and right now do. And so It Cosmetics. So we built the largest beauty brand in QVC's history, and it is right now at this moment. And I only think that is important to share because it was 3 years of them saying, no, you're not the right fit. And I just think that, I don't know, I think that anyone going through that right now, like no one can tell you you're not the right fit. You know what I mean?
I do indeed.
I would love to hear just a little bit of the story between nobody believes me, everybody hates my brand, and $1.9 billion to L'Oreal. Like something in there happened. Something went right. Could you kind of talk about how and when you finally caught traction, and what that little season was like?
So we, no after no after no after no after no. And I had entered us in this big beauty competition. It's like this, it's called CEW Beauty Awards, and it's in New York City. And it was, there's 6. So imagine this huge, like exhibition center.
Sure.
And there were 6,000 women walking the floor that are part of this organization, and all the beauty companies from around the world are all there. And it's once a year, and you get a 3-foot booth, right? And all the big products that launch all year long, all these companies enter their product in an award. The hope of being there is that all the 6,000 women walking the floors vote your product to win one of the awards. In my case, that would have meant like, oh, maybe some of the stores will take me in, or maybe I'll get press. And so we're down to like literally almost no money left. And I had entered this competition a while back, entered this annual thing. So I'm there, I'm at my 3-foot table. You're not allowed to leave your 3-foot table, and you're supposed to just demonstrate your product over and over and over for all of the people walking by. So I'm there, and all of a sudden I see QVC has this giant booth there in person. I'd never met anyone in person, right? Okay. And they've been telling me no for 3 years. Alan Burke says you're not the right fit, all that. And I'm like, oh my gosh, if I can just like sneak away and meet someone, maybe that will help. Right. And I'm sitting there like kind of disassociating myself from what's actually happening. So all these women are walking by, and I'm like talking about the product, and I'm not paying attention. I'm really just focused on how can I get to that QVC booth without getting kicked out, because you're not allowed to.
Sure.
So I'm like praying for the right words. I'm praying for the right timing. I keep trying to sneak away, and then the buyers are mobbed over there. So then I go back to my booth, and eventually I get over there. I talked to a buyer at QVC. She knew who I was based on not me, but the company name, because she'd gotten a million samples over the years. And I was like, I think your customers would love our product. I just pour my heart out to her. Yeah. She gave me her card and said, let's set up a meeting sometime. And I thanked her. I went back to my booth. Now, in that moment, I thought, does she really mean it?
Yeah.
Is this just a courtesy? Like, here's my card.
Yeah, totally.
So I'm back there now at my booth, continuing demonstrating the product over and over. As our concealer by Under Eye, and I'm demonstrating it over and over and over, and still not paying attention, really not present, because I'm now replaying everything I wish I would have just said and all that.
Sure.
All of a sudden, a woman comes up to me. And she introduces herself, and she says, hello, my name is Miss Lisa Mason. I'm a QVC show host. She'd been a show host for 17 years. I didn't realize that earlier in the night, she'd come up to me and I was demonstrating the product with her. I didn't recognize her, and because I was not paying attention. And I was like, oh, and she goes, I just want to tell you, I think our QVC customers will love your product. Wow. And I looked at her, and tears started streaming down my face. I think I freaked her out because she didn't know what I knew, which is like, totally, I'm out of business. everyone has said no.
Of course.
And I think I scared her, and she's like, oh, sugar. I don't have any say over if the product goes she goes, but I want to let
it's
you
not
know.
a contract.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. She goes, but I want to let you know, I love your product. And I went up to our head buyer over there, and I told her she needs to give you a chance. And I was like, thank you.
Totally.
I freaked her out. So long story short, we got a meeting. We had a meeting with the buying team, and QVC's over in Pennsylvania. So I flew out for that. We got a yes. But here's what it meant. And this part of the story, by the way, probably the biggest life lesson, business lesson I learned in the whole journey. We got a yes. And what it meant was we got one shot to go on QVC Live in this 10-minute segment. And we either had to hit their sales goal or not come back. And here's the context, right? We're doing, 2 to 3 orders a day on our website.
Yeah.
I learned that to hit their sales goal in that 10-minute window, we have to sell over 6,000 units of our product. Over 6,000 units. And then I learned that the offer is a consignment offer. So what that meant was I wasn't going to get paid for the product yet. I had to figure out how to pay for, manufacture, ship in over 6,000 units of our concealer. And then if it didn't sell, I would have to take it all back and pay for it, right? So normally you would never want to say yes to that. Like there's that saying in business, never accept a purchase order you can't afford to lose, and could not afford to lose it. But we also at this point it was hundreds of no's. And it was like, okay, well, we can do it this way and go bankrupt, or we're probably going to go out of business anyway. It was that moment. Yeah. So we decided to say yes. Then we had to figure out how to pay for the inventory. So it was over 20 banks said no for an SBA loan. This tiny bank in California gave us an SBA loan just for the amount to cover just the inventory for that one QVC purchase order. So everything was on the line, is my point. Yeah. And we met with third-party consultants. And this is where one of the biggest, I think, and most difficult decisions I've ever faced happened. We met with consultants that said to us, and they help so many people sell their product on QVC or in stores, and they help a lot of people, and they're amazing, and they give you the best advice they know. And they said to me, okay, if you want a shot at doing well, here's what you need to do. You need to produce your segment this way and use this type of model, which was all flawless skin. Of course. I'm like, okay, but here's my thought. I go, what if I go on and I have real women, like what if I put a model in her 70s and all different shapes, ages, skin tones, and skin problems? I go, what if I take my makeup off and show my bright red rosacea? And they're mortified at this idea, right? And they're saying and we would argue about it, because I'd say here's the thing. When we talk about intuition, my intuition said, here's the thing. If I'm sitting at home watching someone show a product and I don't see someone that looks like me, totally, how do I know it's going to work for me? Right. And I was like, this doesn't make sense that you have one age and one skin tone and flawless skin. This doesn't. But they were giving me the best advice they knew. They wanted me to win. So I was in this spot, right? So many of us get in this spot in life where our gut's telling us one thing, and then experts are telling us another. Yeah. And I flew out to QVC a week before this one big shot, and I got this rental car, and I every single day for a week, Jen, I sat in this rental car right out front of the QVC building. It's this huge campus, and I just watched people walk in and out of the front door, and I sat there and prayed and cried and went through all these scenarios in my head, right? Because I was like, okay, because there was so much pressure. I knew the next time I walked through those doors, I was going to walk out either bankrupt or with my whole life changed. Totally.
No in between.
Yeah. And I just thought okay. And there were moments I know you can't fake authenticity. I know that. I know viewers are smart. I knew intuitively that the only way to succeed was to fully show up, and with that authentic mission and why I was doing what I was doing. But oftentimes we know the right thing to do, but it's also the hardest thing to do. And so there were moments in that car where I struggled with doubting my own gut. Like I thought thoughts like, okay, well, if I try it their way, and then maybe it works.
Sure.
And
right.
Eventually I'll try it my way. And I just remember this moment in the car where I was like, okay, it was like this big epiphany moment where I was trying to imagine who my customer was and who is going to be watching, because QVC is live television shopping channel, but it's live to 100 million homes. And I had this moment in the car where I was like, I kept imagining, for whatever reason, a single mom in Nebraska folding laundry who was so busy that she forgot she mattered and forgot she was beautiful. And I was like, I would rather have her turn on if she's going to bless me with 3 seconds of her precious time, I would rather have her turn on the television, see me showing real people that look like her and calling them beautiful and meaning it, even if she bought nothing. Like I'd rather do that than sell a crap load of product and stand for nothing. And so like, I knew what I had to do, and I remember, walking in the door of QVC I remember walking in the studio. Oh, and by the way, I learned that you're not even guaranteed your 10 minutes. Like if I went live and all of a sudden it's not going well and we're like a minute or two into the presentation, you might see your clock jump from 8 minutes left down to 1 minute left, like that. And I was like, and so it was so much pressure, and I had on double Spanx. I sweat through the double Spanx. I was in this dress,
of course,
mess, because it was just I remember, and they paired me with the host who had come up to me that day at the show.
Yeah.
And so, thank God, because I was a mess. And I remember the camera went on and I was shaking. Like I was trying to do this demonstration on my wrist with
with like you're shaking.
Yeah. My whole wrist was like Scooby-Doo when he sees a ghost, and she like grabbed my hand and she's like, thank you, sugar. And she took over, and they pulled my bare face. I'll never forget my bare face, bright red before shot. On national TV. And I remember going to the models. I didn't know how it was going, but I knew I wasn't cut yet.
Yeah.
And I remember going to the models, like all ages and shapes and sizes and skin tones and skin challenges, and calling them beautiful and meaning it. And we got down to the last, because remember, by this point, there were amazing makeup artist brands that are phenomenal. And then there was a lot of other beauty brands, but no one was going on and just saying like, here's my skin challenges and they're beautiful. Yeah. And if you want to, have your, products that help you look like yourself, in your natural skin, this works. And like, it was a totally different thing than what had been done. And I remember we had about a minute left in the presentation, and I heard the host say like, the tan shade's almost gone, the deep shade's almost sold out. And I was like freaking out. And then right at the 10-minute mark, this giant sold out sign came up across the screen. I start sobbing on national TV, and then they cut from me and go to like Dyson vacuum or something. And my husband came running through the double doors of the QVC studios, and I'm like sobbing, and I'm like, real women have spoken. He's like, we're not going bankrupt. And I was like, ah. And that one earring turned into 5 that year, right? So this is that in between space of hundreds of no's so that one airing turned into 5 that year and 101 the next year. And then we did over, and still do, over 250 live shows a year. And within, I think it was 4 years, we built the biggest beauty brand in QVC's history. And I only share that because it was years of them saying no, and not just no, but you're not the right fit.
A firm no. Like we've really thought it through. We've all discussed it. It's unanimous. It's a hard no.
It's a hard no.
Yeah, totally.
Yes, you are not the right fit, which really just sounds like someone saying you're not enough over and over and over. Right. And
but then to have such success in the exact same space is so special. I mean, that is so incredible. That is such a great story. That is so then what? Like you're telling this great story. I'm just like listening, like you're like I'm at story time.
We eventually got a yes from every single place that had said no. And some of them happened shortly after our QVC success. Others, like in the case of Sephora, took a total of 6 years of no's to eventually get a yes. And And so then we kept building and building. Yeah. And, I had this whole dream of trying to shift the definition of beauty in the beauty industry. And so I was like, we've got to go global. And so out of this office that we finally made it out of our living room. We were in a townhouse. And then we made it out of there and got an actual office space. And then we started growing and we grew to over 1,000 employees and started launching international. Like I couldn't believe my own success for a while. And I thought at any moment it may come crashing down. So I was working 100-hour weeks for years. And I realized like I got to the point where I was addicted to work and we had tried to have kids for a decade and I was having miscarriages and all of these things were going on where my husband and I realized like when he would call me, I thought it was a work call when I'd see his name on my phone. Like it was to the point where work was our whole world. And so part of, I think, learning to trust yourself is also learning when to not trust yourself. And we realized, right, that I didn't trust myself to not keep working the way my parents did growing up, frankly. And then I wanted to try and change history for myself personally. And so that was also part of the reason where I'm like, you know what, I think we need to sell the business or partner with someone. We thought about going public, but in that case, you're still running it as well. And it's kind of all on you. And so it was a big, so we started taking, when I had that realization, we started taking meetings with L'Oreal and then they weren't interested for a long time. It was 3 years of them saying no to a potential partnership. And back to the rejection is God's protection. By the time they did want a partnership, so did a lot of other people. Yeah. So it was this moment where all of a sudden L'Oreal wanted to buy the company and so did a lot of others. And so all of a sudden the price was so much higher than what it would have been. Yeah. And it was kind of like the stars aligned and so that was 2016. We decided to partner with them. And then I stayed on. They made me their first woman to hold a CEO title in their 100+ year history of any brand.
Oh, I didn't know that. Wow.
Yeah, it was and it was kind of a real cool experience. And everyone there is like in couture, head to toe and all the right all that stuff. And in the early years, so in the 3 years they were saying no to us, I would feel like, should I wear cooler clothes to these meetings? Sure. But what I realized is because we stayed true to who we were, like I never started, like I was always just maybe odd
who you are
compared to who I am, compared to their culture. But by year 3 of our meetings, part of why, because we stayed authentic to who we were, because we didn't fit in, we were different than the 40 other brands they own. And so because of that, we had created something so valuable. You know what I mean? And I think
absolutely.
You hear your authenticity is your superpower. And in this case, it was in every way, shape, and form. Like, had we ever start changing who we were to listen to all the advice from the stores telling us no, or even some of the advice from L'Oreal over the years and the meetings that ended with no, if we had made those changes that didn't feel authentic to us, we probably never would have been purchased by them for that much. And we probably never would have built a company that lasted.
Do you know what's so funny about that? As you're telling that story, I have such a clear memory because when I was, let's see, honestly, I think I was 22. I might've been 23. I went for the very first time. I don't even know if you know what this is. It's kind of in a bygone era, but there was this huge conference that traveled around, a Christian conference called Women of Faith. I don't know if you ever heard of that or went to it, but it was like an arena conference, like an arena tour. And I'd never heard of it. And well, I'd never heard of it because I think that year was its first or second year. But anyway, it came to the town that I was in. And didn't know the teachers. All the speakers were older. They were all in their like 60s and 70s and funny and wild and irreverent. Like I didn't know you were allowed to do that and be a Christian. I hadn't seen that version yet. And I didn't know that women could speak like that. I just never seen anything like it. I'd never seen women in kind of having agency over their own faith and gifts as communicators. That was just news to me. And so anyhow, I remember, so I went that first year to Women of Faith in an arena in Tulsa. And then 2 years later, I went to another arena. And I remember sitting, I was like way up in the nosebleeds and I'm 24 maybe at that point. And I remember where I was sitting, like to what angle I was facing the stage, when I just had this very clear thought, like, I think that I am going to be on the stage with those women, which was an absurd thing to think, an absolutely absurd. I mean, I was a teacher. I taught fourth grade. I had never even I'd never been in adult work. I worked with 10-year-olds, and then inside marriage, I worked with students. And so at our church, I didn't even know women. Anyhow, it was so clear and it persistent. It just hung on for years. And then, 8 years later, I surprisingly to myself even move into this space as a writer and as a communicator, and then ultimately as a teacher and speaker. And so in 2015, their event, and so I'd seen them back in 1996. So in 2015, the organizers of the event got in touch with me and said, it's the farewell tour. It's the last year of Women of Faith. It had been like 20-year run. And we would love for you to join the tour for its last leg of the race. And I just remember sitting there going, what in the world? I mean, I remember that thought from 20 years earlier that didn't even make sense. It didn't even have a home. I didn't even have a board to Velcro it to. Like I wasn't even in that world. I didn't even know about it. And so I love listening to your story, and it's giving me such like nostalgia in my own heart for sometimes the ways that if we're still enough and quiet enough, if we'll listen and trust it, there's a knowing that we are given maybe 20 years before we need it. Maybe 20 years before it's even going to ever come to fruition. And yet there it is.
Ladies and gentlemen, rock this house and welcome to the stage, Jamie Kern Lima! Jamie Kern Lima!
Every single one of us has had someone tell us we're not enough. Every single one of us has had someone say words to us that hurt.